You know, sometimes a single day can feel like a real hinge point in history, a moment where the world seems to split onto two totally different tracks. We're going to dive into one of those days right now. The day we're zeroing in on is Thursday, February 19th, 2026, because on this one day, events happening in the UK, South Korea, and the United States laid out two starkly different visions for the future of power and justice.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to connect the dots between the arrest of a royal prince, the sentencing of a former president for insurrection, and a whole series of moves in Washington, D.C. that were all about building a new world order. It's a truly global story, and it all unfolds on the very same day.
All right, let's start our day in the United Kingdom, where something happened that sent a crystal clear message. Not even royalty is above the law.
So get this, on the morning of his 66th birthday, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, who we all used to know as Prince Andrew, was arrested. The charge? Misconduct in public office. Authorities suspected that back when he was a UK trade envoy, he passed confidential government documents to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It's that connection that had already cost him his royal titles the year before.
To really get how big a deal this was, you have to understand the history. The last time a senior royal was arrested was all the way back in 1647, right in the middle of the English Civil War. So this wasn't just another news story. It was a modern precedent being set right before our eyes.
And the reaction from the royal family? Well, that was just as significant. There was no attempt to shield him, no closing of the ranks. Instead, his own brother, King Charles III, gave the investigation his wholehearted support. He stated very plainly that Buckingham Palace would cooperate fully and that the law must run its course.
Now, this whole theme of accountability was playing out across the globe in South Korea, too. Here, another powerful leader was facing the ultimate legal consequence for trying to blow up the democratic process itself.
The crime was insurrection. Former President Yoon Yeol was found guilty of using the military in a last-ditch, desperate attempt to cling to power by blockading the National Assembly and trying to arrest opposition leaders.
And this timeline is just wild. It shows how fast a democracy can defend itself. In December 2024, Yoon declares martial law. Just hours later, lawmakers literally fought their way past his troops to overturn it. 11 days after that, he was impeached. And now, on this day, February 19th, 2026, he gets his sentence: life behind bars.
And this just perfectly illustrates the theme of the first half of our day, doesn't it? From a constitutional monarchy in the UK to a republic in South Korea, you have two very different systems demonstrating the exact same principle. The powerful are not immune. There are consequences.
Okay, now let's shift gears completely. We're going to head over to Washington, D.C., because on the exact same day that these stories of accountability were playing out, a totally different narrative about power was being written in the United States.
In Washington, the theme wasn't about submitting to existing institutions. It was about creating brand new, parallel ones. A new United Nations, a new World Health Organization, even a new version of history. And, a new presidential image, literally hung on the side of the Department of Justice. It was a full-on attempt to build a parallel reality.
I mean, just take the Board of Peace, Trump's proposed replacement for the UN. The guest list tells you everything you need to know. On one side, you have nations like Saudi Arabia and Hungary, and on the other side, the no-shows, almost all of America's traditional democratic allies. This wasn't just a new committee. It was an attempt to redraw the entire geopolitical map.
And that plan to replace the World Health Organization, it came with a pretty staggering price tag. As public health experts were quick to point out, it would cost nearly 3 times more to set up a US-run system, and it would probably have way less global reach and influence.
But this day wasn't just about building new structures. It was also about a concerted effort to redefine truth itself and rewrite the fundamental rules of democracy through the power of language.
When he was asked about the Prince Andrew arrest and the whole Epstein scandal aboard Air Force One, President Trump's response was this. He actually positioned himself as an expert on the matter because he claimed he'd been totally exonerated.
But the reality, as noted in the reports that cover that very statement, is simple and direct. He has not.
This effort to shape reality also extended to policy. On the very same day, Trump was championing the Save America Act.
Now, the name makes it sound like it's all about security, but the bill's actual purpose is to impose dramatic new restrictions on voting to solve a problem, widespread voting by non-citizens, that simply doesn't exist.
So what was the stated goal of passing this law? Well, in his own words, spoken to an audience in Georgia, it was this: not just to win one election, but to make sure his party wouldn't lose a race for half a century. So here's the crucial point. On one single day, February 19, 2026, we saw two profoundly different models of power and governance play out on the world stage.
On one side, you have a model of accountability. The law applies to everyone, and established institutions are there to keep power in check. On the other side, you have a model of defiance, where powerful leaders try to rewrite the law, create their own alternate institutions, and build a system that reinforces their individual power.
Two worlds, two completely different philosophies, all happening on one day. And it leaves us with a really fundamental question. As we move forward, which of these two paths will ultimately shape the world we all live in?